Who are you? I didn't invite you. The person who said this to me was my classmate, Terrence. He always looked down on me since I dropped out of high school and never missed a chance to put me down. Today was our class reunion, but because of him, I was in the worst mood. Just as I couldn't take it anymore and was about to leave, a mysterious beauty approached me. "Mr. Johnson, we're going to cancel the contract with that company, okay?" "What?" Terrence was puzzled by the words that came from the beautiful woman. "My name is James Johnson. I turned 25 this year. Now I've managed to find a job and am living a normal life, but it wasn't always like this." I continued. I had dropped out of high school due to certain circumstances. Back then, everyone told me not to drop out of high school, and they were right. There are few companies that hire someone with only a middle school education, and those that do often pay very low wages. If I had adapted better to society, maybe I could have landed a decent job, even with just a middle school education. But I'm shy by nature and extremely bad at socializing, so I was rejected many times in interviews, and there seemed to be no sign of me getting hired. I was laughed at and called jobless by others, which was humiliating. Since then, I stopped attending high school reunions and pursued my own life. Yet, I received another invitation to a reunion. Now that I'm gainfully employed, I shouldn't feel ashamed of my life. I was a bit excited about going to the reunion since I would see some old friends. On the day of the reunion, I dressed simply in jeans and a white t-shirt and headed to the venue. It's been a while since I've seen everyone. I might be getting a bit nervous, I muttered to myself. Talking to myself when nervous is a habit of mine. I know it, but I just can't stop it. When I finally decided to enter the restaurant, some of my classmates had already arrived. I sat at the edge, waiting for others to gather. It seemed that more than half of us were going to be there. At 25, everyone's careers were starting to stabilize. After everyone arrived and we toasted, I started talking to a classmate sitting next to me. Even though we weren't close in school, it turns out you can have a good time as adults. That was how enjoyable the conversation with my classmates was. That's when someone came up to me and dropped a bombshell. "Who are you? I didn't invite you." The person who approached me was my classmate, Terrence. Seeing Terrence's face brought back all the unpleasant memories from our school days. Terrence was a kind of mood maker, always stepping up to lead the class. I thought that someone with such communication skills would surely succeed in the future, but I disliked Terrence because he would pointlessly pick on me. I'm shy, unlike Terrence, so my way of speaking tends to be subdued. Terrence would imitate me or hide my personal belongings and laugh about it. Looking back, I realized that these actions were more serious than I thought at the time, and I really hated it. When I decided to drop out of high school, Terrence was the first to approach me. "You're quitting school. Dropping out of high school is really bad, isn't it?" "Shut up. Everyone has their own circumstances. It must be just because you couldn't keep up with your studies, right?" My frustration had built up over time, and I finally showed my anger. Despite that, Terrence didn't stop his teasing, and I ended up feeling miserable until the very end. And today, Terrence was again rubbing me the wrong way. "It's me, James, the one who dropped out partway. Just kidding. I remember you. Don't make such a scary face." Terrence seemed to think it was a joke, but for me, it was an unpleasant remark. Moreover, he said he didn't invite me, but I had received an official invitation. It seems that my classmates still think of me as one of them, even though I left midway. I was invited, so I intended to enjoy today. Should I have not come if I knew Terrence would be here? I thought, no, that would be disrespectful to the classmates who invited me. All sorts of thoughts raced through my mind. However, Terrence didn't seem to care, and he kept talking to me incessantly. He was sitting elsewhere earlier, but when he saw the classmate next to me leave, he sat down beside me. At that moment, all I could think was, please spare me. Speaking of which, dropping out of high school was a bold move. What was the reason for quitting again? There were many reasons. What are they? You can tell me. Oh, is it something you can't say? He looked at me with a grin, as if he had found a fun toy. But after persisting without getting any information from me, he started talking about himself. I went to a top university and then I got a job at a major corporation. How about that? I bet there's no one as successful as me. Where do you work? I'm at Corporation B. You know it, right? You must, after all. Corporation B is famous nationwide. I was a bit annoyed, but what Terrence said was true. Indeed, Corporation B is a nationally famous company, and I'm familiar with it. It's known for its high entry standards and is famous for a culture where athletes thrive. Seeing Terrence, I could understand why he was doing well at Corporation B. To me, Terrence is nothing but a person with a bad personality, but someone as assertive as him is likely to survive there. Actually, I'm still treated as a newbie, but I'm about to secure my first contract. A contract that's hard to get. Haven't you been working there for 3 years? That's what bottom-rank companies are like. At our company, it's rare for someone to secure such a big contract. It seemed that Terrence was excited about the possibility of securing a large contract. With alcohol in his system, he kept bragging one after another. Well, for a guy like me, it's easy. I half listened to his stories while playing with my phone. I thought he would get bored and go somewhere else once he finished bragging. However, the moment Terrence noticed I wasn't paying attention and was on my phone, he snatched it from my hands and started to get angry. Hey, listen properly when someone is talking. And by the way, no one asked you to come. Why don't you just go home? After that, he kept telling me to leave. At first, I ignored him and continued to drink and eat the food in front of me. But gradually his voice got louder, attracting the attention of other classmates. The atmosphere had been enjoyable until then, but it turned sour because of his anger. Staying here would only cause more trouble. With that thought, I started to feel guilty. If I left, his anger might subside, and then the reunion could become more enjoyable for everyone else. Unable to bear it any longer, I grabbed my things and tried to leave the restaurant. So you don't even have the energy to argue back. A high school dropout shouldn't even come to reunions. Such jeers were thrown at me from behind, making me feel utterly miserable. I was happy to see everyone after such a long time, but if things like this were going to happen, I'd rather not come again. With these thoughts, I opened the door of the restaurant. I felt a sense of relief as I stepped out, but Terrence still wasn't satisfied. He even followed me out of the restaurant, chasing after me. Hey, wait! It won't be fun if you just leave like that. But you're the one who told me to leave. Yeah, but Terrence wrapped his arm around me, still not done teasing, as if he hadn't had enough. I wish he would just leave me alone. Why is he so obsessed? Confused and dazed, I stood there without understanding why. Then a luxury car pulled up on the road in front of us. Its exterior was unmistakably high-end, and even Terrence couldn't help but stare in awe. After a moment, a woman with a sleek figure and flowing long black hair stepped out from the driver's seat. Wow, she's incredibly beautiful. Being with someone like that would be bliss, Terrence said, loud enough for her to possibly hear. I thought it was quite rude to say such a thing, but she was indeed strikingly beautiful. As the woman approached us, she suddenly spoke up. I've come to pick you up. What? Me? Startled, Terrence pointed to himself. After being told she had come to pick him up, while thinking it couldn't possibly be him, I opened my mouth to speak. Thank you. I'm sorry for the trouble. No trouble at all. I was passing by. Besides, you've always been so helpful, she said. Watching us converse familiarly, Terrence stood there with his mouth agape. Hey, what's the relationship between you two? He had been quietly listening at first, but then he couldn't contain his curiosity any longer. Ah, is this the person you mentioned in your message earlier? That's right. What were you talking about just now? Truth be told, while Terrence was hassling me earlier, I had asked this beautiful woman to come and pick me up. I was using my phone to send her a message. If you were talking about me, then it's a quick story. I'm Terrence from Corporation B. Would you mind if we exchanged contact information? Corporation B. Yes, actually, I'm about to sign a contract with a company called Corporation A. I'm a man with a bright future. Despite the woman's clearly dismissive expression, Terrence started bragging. Confidentiality is crucial in business contracts, and I wondered if it was really okay for him to speak so freely. As I pondered this, the woman turned to me and said, "President Johnson, we will terminate the contract with that company." What? What are you talking about? Terrence couldn't hide his surprise as our conversation took a serious turn. He started to sweat and looked panicked as he began to understand our relationship. "President? What are you talking about? You dropped out of high school, right?" "That's true, but I never told you what I did afterward, did I?" No, that's too much of a joke. A high school dropout becoming a president? That's impossible." Seeing me being called President Johnson by the woman seemed to momentarily unnerve him. However, believing that a high school dropout couldn't possibly become a president, he quickly reverted to his usual smug expression. The woman then formally introduced herself. "I apologize for the late introduction. I work in sales at Corporation A. My name is Lily." "Wait, you work at Corporation A? Wow, what a surprise. What a coincidence. You seem to be mistaken, but James here is the president of Corporation A." "No, Lily, what are you talking about? You don't have to go along with his lie." Although Lily just revealed my identity, he was still in denial, or perhaps he simply didn't want to believe it. That makes sense. The guy he had always looked down on as just a high school dropout was the president of a company. Moreover, the very company he had been desperately trying to secure a contract with. For Terrence, it must be an unbearable truth. "I've heard about you from Mr. Johnson, and you are indeed very rude," Lily said. "Rude? What are you talking about? To think that someone like you was negotiating a contract, it really shows a lack of judgment. Though Terrence might have begun to suspect it, the truth is that I am the president of Corporation A, and Lily, she belongs to our sales department, a top performer despite her youth. She's the only woman in the sales department, and she's hungrier and more diligent than anyone, always working for the company. She's tough on herself, and even tougher on others, particularly not tolerating people like Terrence. She once said, 'People who brag without any real skills are just annoying to be around.' Fortunately, we don't have anyone like that at our company." Her blunt honesty took me by surprise. Perhaps because Lily and I are close in age, she felt comfortable speaking her mind. However, I think it's rare to find an employee who can express their opinions so clearly. Wait a minute. Even if this guy is the president of Corporation A, and you are an employee, isn't it wrong to cancel the contract? Not really. The reason is clear. We don't do business with unreliable companies, and we can't entrust work to someone who can't keep confidentiality, Lily explained. That's right. I'll also be reporting this to Corporation B, I added, watching his panicked expression. I couldn't help but speak up. Perhaps the anger I had been holding back was finally being released. While I admire Terrence's communication skills, I think my conduct as a professional is far superior. Maybe there was some talent in me that allowed me to work as a president when I couldn't get a job in a regular company. I thought of starting my own business. If I couldn't fit into society, then I could create an environment where I could fit in. At first, I didn't even know what kind of company to start or what goals to set. But working part-time, I had plenty of time to think. I observed customers while I worked and learned about different ways of working. Gradually, the type of company I wanted to build became clear. Now it's becoming the company I envisioned. There were difficulties in the beginning, but I had teammates who stuck with me. Lily is one of them, and I really appreciate how hard she works. As I was thinking about this, Terrence started to rage furiously. "Don't mess with me. I won't allow you to cancel the contract. There's nothing you can do about it. This is a matter of corporate policy." I replied, "You being a president is impossible. You're just a dropout who couldn't handle school." Realizing he was at a disadvantage, Terrence began to lash out at me. He probably couldn't even comprehend why I became a president. The truth is, there was a clear reason I decided to start my own company. Of course, not being able to get a job in a conventional company was one reason, but there was a bigger reason. You're just a child who talks too much without knowing anything. What, just because you're pretty doesn't mean you can say too much? Terrence sneered. James dropped out of high school to take care of his sick mother. Lily shouted with a louder voice than I had ever heard from her before. The truth is, I dropped out of high school for my mother. We lost my father early, and my mother had raised me single-handedly with dignity. But right after I started my senior year, my mother collapsed from overwork. The doctor advised her to rest, but she still tried to work. Mom, please rest. What if you collapse again? But if I don't work, how will we survive? You should focus on your studies. I'm going to quit high school. I'll quit and increase my shifts at work, I blurted out, talking to my exhausted mother. Of course, she strongly opposed the idea, but I wanted to start working as soon as possible. I didn't want to put her through more hardship, and I couldn't bear the thought of her collapsing again. After all, she's the only family I have. What would I do if I lost her? Driven by these thoughts, I insisted on dropping out of high school. We even had a meeting with my teacher, Mr. Clayton, who respected my decision. I think it's better to graduate from high school, but I respect your decision, James. After several discussions, my mother finally agreed with my plan. Once I quit high school, I immediately increased my work shifts, spending every day at my part-time job. Of course, I also studied during my free time at home, trying my best to maintain my academic skills. Even if people laughed and pointed fingers, I never thought my decision was wrong. Gradually, my mother's health improved, and now she works sparingly. I had said I would take care of her for life, but she chose to work, perhaps out of consideration. However, with the money I sent her, she should be fine even if she can't work. Lily, having grown up in a similar situation, got angry on my behalf, like it was her own matter. Terrence, unaware of this background, seemed to regret teasing me. However, it was unlike him to admit his fault, and he continued to confront us. Do you think I'd be moved by that? Too bad. Blame the circumstances you were born into. Despicable, I muttered. As Terrence cautiously looked behind, he saw that our classmates were standing there. After the reunion, he hadn't realized they had come out, as he had his back to the store. Truth be told, our classmates had been there for a little while, so they had heard all the despicable things he had said to me. I always thought you were rude, but I never imagined you could be this awful. No, wait. That's not it. You understand, right? It's all his fault. Terrence pointed at me as he spoke, trying to shift the blame. Unfortunately for him, our classmates knew he was in the wrong. They had been watching the entire exchange, so it was unlikely that anyone thought I was the villain. Moreover, even back in high school, it was always Terrence who started trouble. We used to hang out because of old times' sake, but please don't involve us anymore. It's really not like that. Wait, everyone. One classmate's comment not to associate with him led others to openly criticize Terrence, and ignoring his pleas to listen, they all left. Damn it. Because of you, everyone's gone now. How will I cope if I lose my friends because of this? That's your own doing. You brought this upon yourself. What are you saying? You're not at fault. As Terrence said this, he walked toward me, thinking he might do something. I instinctively braced myself. That's when Lily stepped in front of me. Enough already. If you do anything more, I'll call the police. Police? You guys are infuriating. Hearing the word police, Terrence seemed to get scared. Scared and cursing, he left the scene. This settles it then. All that's left is to cancel the contract. I'm older and a man, and yet I feel so pathetic. But thank you. It's okay. Plus, I actually have a black belt. It seems that Lily has been practicing judo since she was young, and now she holds a black belt. No wonder she excels in the competitive sales department, known for its athletic culture. With a black belt, most things probably aren't intimidating to her. In contrast, I feel truly pathetic being protected by Lily. Although she said not to worry about it, I couldn't help but feel inadequate. That day ended with the resolution of the situation, but sometime later, I started learning judo myself, which is a story for another time. After a while, I heard from Lily about the dealings with Corporation B. It was really tough. A senior manager from B Corporation, around the age of our parents, came forward begging us not to cancel the contract, she recounted. So, what ended up happening with the contract? Actually, I had recorded the conversation just in case. I thought it might come in handy, Lily said. From the moment she received my message, She knew Terrence was trouble. That's why she had turned on her phone's recording app, just in case something happened. I always knew she was competent at her job, being the top sales performer, but I hadn't expected her to be so foresighted as to keep a recording. When Terrence's manager heard the recorded conversation, his face apparently went pale. He completely changed his tune, apologizing profusely and stating that they were okay with terminating the contract despite Terrence's fervent protests that he was not to blame. The presence of the recording left his manager no choice but to believe Lily. You should have seen how flustered he was. I wish I could have shown it to you, James, she remarked. Hey, don't say things like that, I replied, half-jokingly. But he's been harassing you for a long time, hasn't he? Indeed, Lily was right. I had endured harassment from Terrence for a long time, and he kept making snide remarks without understanding what I had been going through. Originally, I was shy and meek, and all I could do was listen to Terrence. But upon reflection, I realized that I had been working harder than him all along. It was clear to anyone who was in the wrong. Up until now, the problem hadn't been exposed, so our classmates hadn't realized it. But now that they knew Terrence was the bad guy, I wondered how many would stay by his side. Sometime after that, I learned what became of Terrence. He was called in by the senior management at B Corporation for numerous meetings due to his failure to maintain confidentiality and the potential trouble he could cause our company. Given that his actions had significantly damaged B Corporation's reputation, he was let go. It might seem harsh to be fired over one mistake, but the problem he caused was significant, especially since the corporation, being a major company, deals with many other businesses. If Terrence had continued his behavior and caused a massive leak of client information, the repercussions would have been much worse than this incident. Moreover, it's possible that he had been under scrutiny for some time because there was already a lack of trust in him. Any small issue might have led to his dismissal. I don't know all the details, but it's not unlikely, considering it's Terrence. Yet he couldn't accept it and called me to protest. Do you know what's happened to me because of you? Yeah, Lily told me. Tough break. Why are you treating this like it's none of your business? What am I supposed to do now? He had been proud of working for a major company, and he seemed to deeply resent being fired. I wished I could help, but the decision was made by the corporation, not by me. Even if I hadn't reported his behavior, it was likely that this would have happened eventually. He wanted to believe he was not at fault, but life has a way of returning what one puts out into the world. He proved that himself, and now nobody from the reunion is returning my calls. I'm about to run out of money soon. Run out of money? Hasn't it only been a month since you were fired? Of course, I'd spent it all by now. Terrence apparently was not the type to save money. Additionally, he mentioned that due to the stress of losing his job, he had been spending his nights drinking out, which quickly depleted his funds. Previously, he had borrowed money from classmates and his parents, but his classmates stopped responding to his calls. His parents said they couldn't lend him any more money, leaving him with nowhere to turn. How am I supposed to live now? Are you going to lend me money? I can't lend you money. Besides, if no one else is willing to lend you money, it must be because they don't trust you. Why don't you just give up? You've suddenly become so assertive, he remarked. That's not like you. Indeed, Terrence was right. It wasn't like me. In the past, I would have just listened to or ignored him, but now I was able to speak my mind. Something inside me must have changed. If that was the case, I might as well say everything I was thinking. With that thought, I spoke up. You might have lived however you wanted until now, but it won't be so easy from here on out. What are you trying to say? I think you're going to find that things are only going to get tougher from here on. Shut up. Unable to respond to my words, he weakly uttered that and then hung up the phone. Right after the call ended, I sat down on the nearby sofa. I had always thought this, but talking to Terrence was incredibly draining. It felt like he was sucking the energy right out of people. But now that I no longer have to deal with him, I can focus on my work without any worries. Since then, I've thrown myself into my work more than ever before. A year has passed, and the company has grown even larger. We've added a few more employees. Being a rapidly rising company, we've started to attract attention in the industry. Recently, We've been getting hints that other companies want to make contracts with us. Lily told me, it seems our employees' sincere efforts have been recognized, and there are companies that would like to do business with us. As for us, more clients are always welcome. With more employees, I hope to grow the company even larger. However, there was just one problem for me personally: romance. To tell the truth, I've been so focused on work that I've never seriously dated anyone. But as I get older and see my classmates getting married, even I, who never paid much attention to romance, start to feel the pressure. People have started asking if I'm ever going to get married. So maybe it's time for me to take an interest in something other than work. And just recently, Lily said something to me. I have a friend who would be perfect for you. Please go on a date with her. I'm not really interested in that sort of thing. If you keep that attitude, you'll end up an old man before you know it. Persuaded by Lily, I agreed to go on a date with her friend. It had been years since I'd been on a date, so I waited nervously at the meeting spot. The woman who arrived was lovely, just as Lily had said. A really nice person. It felt more like hanging out with a friend than a date. She made sure not to make me feel awkward, and gradually my nerves eased. I thought to myself, spending every day with someone like her would surely make me happy. As I entertained these thoughts, I realized it was time to part ways. Watching her wave goodbye, I blurted out without thinking, could we go on another date sometime? She turned around, surprised, but smiled and nodded, yes. Half a year later, after many more dates, I finally gathered the courage to confess my feelings, and she said, yes. I had always thought that romance was not something I needed to pursue, but meeting someone with whom I truly clicked made me realize how much it could brighten my life. While I'm not yet thinking about marriage, I believe that one day I will marry her. During these happy days, I suddenly thought to myself, could it be that my success at work and in love is all thanks to Lily? Without her, I probably wouldn't be experiencing the happiness I feel now. Realizing this, I knew there was so much I owed her and so much gratitude to give. Here, a gift. Isn't this that expensive brand of sweets? What's this all of a sudden? I never thought I'd see the day I give a gift with good intentions only to be teased. If you don't want it, give it back. No way. This is all mine now. Lily said as she hugged the box of sweets I handed her. The truth is, I only have a few more weeks to see Lily. The reason is that she is expecting a child and will be going on maternity leave. Initially, she planned to return after her maternity leave, but she decided to resign due to her own wishes. Honestly, I want her to stay with the company, but seeing the happiness on her face, I couldn't bring myself to ask her to stay. Moreover, as Lily is someone I deeply respect and owe so much to, I truly want her to be happy. So I only have a few more weeks to see her, and after she leaves, we probably won't meet privately. Thinking about this makes me feel strangely sad, but life stages change, and with them, the people we interact with also change. Even with those we are close to, it's uncertain if they will still be by our side in a few years. Witnessing Lily's departure and how Terrence has become ostracized, I made a promise to myself to never forget to appreciate the people around me more than ever before.